Update. Am I the a-hole for refusing to allow a friend to crash on my couch? Original story. I recently moved into a penthouse apartment. It's not all it's cracked up to be. It's called a penthouse, but it's just a 2-bedroom apartment about twice the size the usual ones, located on the roof of my apartment building, and have been trying to put my life back together. Part of the problem is, before moving into this place, I was letting people practically walk all over me and get away with damn near everything, under the pretense of them being my roommates. As in, they can do pretty much what they wanted, as long as they paid their part of the rent, or so they said. I started going to therapy to help with some of the problems I was having, and part of that therapy was for me to move out. It was pure chance that I got where I am now, and I couldn't be happier. However, one of the former roommates got kicked out of the apartment I left, after he got a number of noise complaints. Mostly due to his own anger issues, and yelling at the top of his lung that anyone on YouTube, TV, or the news who annoyed him should be shot, or something worse. Now, he doesn't specifically know where I live, just that I have more space than I did before. So he called me up and asked me if he could crash at my place, until he could get an apartment of his own. I said no. This was fine, until yesterday when he started calling me and saying that since I lived in a penthouse, that meant I had space, so I needed to let him stay with me. I repeated my previous no, and he called me all manner of things before hanging up. Now, through our mutual friends, I'm being told that I'm being an a-hole here. Since I do have the space to spare, it is unlikely there'd be a noise complaint since I don't have any neighbors per se. I just don't want to do something that may lead to the problems I left, but I can't help but kinda see some of their reasoning. Am I the a-hole here? And what would be a better way to explain things to people giving me crap about it? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not an a-hole. You moved out because he was a bad roommate. He got evicted because he is a bad tenant. Just because you don't have next door neighbors doesn't mean you don't have neighbors. You still have downstairs neighbors who won't be happy that some a-hole in the upstairs apartment is shouting at YouTube videos all day. And even if you didn't have downstairs neighbors, you literally moved out because living with him was so terrible. Why would you want to live with him again? Thank you. I really love it here. And for the first real time in years, it feels like everything is going in the right direction for once. Finally getting out of a bad living situation is a special thing. Don't let this guy ruin it for you. From the sound of things, it seems like he has plenty of other people who care about his living situation, so I'm sure one of them will take him in. Think of it this way. If you let him crash for a day, you will be stuck with him forever, and getting rid of him will be a toll in your self-help progress. Don't ruin your happiness because of someone else's choices. Not an a-hole. And any friend that calls you an a-hole, you need to say, "Alright, so why don't you take him in?" Don't bring him in, because he will never leave. Not an a-hole. Your house. You don't need to do anything. Even less now that he's called you all kinds of names and complained to all your friends about it. Why aren't your other friends offering him a place to crash? Are they aware he was kicked out for noise complaints due to anger issues? It's easy to be generous with someone else's resources. And now for the update. I took the advice presented by many in the comments and made it clear to the people calling me an a-hole for not letting my former roommate crash on my couch, that if they were so worried about him, then they should let him in. One of the mutual friends stepped in and set some rules for him. Specifically that it was only temporary and that he was going to need to make a serious effort into securing housing for himself. Part of that, as I understand it, was enrolling in a special program where he would attend regular treatment as a mental welfare group and would work with a caseworker about getting everything set up for him. The goal of the program being to provide a special voucher if the person were making an obvious and visible effort to fix the problems that had either caused them to be homeless or on the way to becoming it. He's refusing to go, claiming that they don't really help anyone, and that it's just a waste of time for him to bother going. I've blocked him in all social media outlets, but that hasn't stopped him trying to contact me. The friend who took him in has come to understand why I had to distance myself from that situation, and he is already on very thin ice with them due to his sheer laziness about everything. They try to get him help, and he's refusing to do it. He's also refusing to leave their house now, and seems to be holding out this hope that I'll get lonely and ask for him to come join me. It's as if he honestly can't understand I don't want anything to do with him. Having said that, I think they're going to give him a second chance with the caseworkers, but if he keeps refusing to go, I fully expect him to be kicked out on the street once more. I do know that everyone in our friend group have started to back away from him, having seen or heard what the other friend is dealing with, and maybe coming to realize why I reacted like I did to his being kicked out in the first place. As it stands, it looks like the only person that may be willing to take him in is going to be his mother, as even his older brothers washed his hands off the guy. I'll update further if anything more develops out of this. Note, I have also instructed my landlord and property manager about the issue with his former friend/roommate. They have placed him on the do not enter list, meaning that if he sets foot on the property, they will refuse entry. And if he doesn't leave, they will trespass him from the property. It's a safety measure they usually take with DV situations, married couples or otherwise, but feel that given my history, I fit the bill to qualify for such protection. Just 1 week with him on someone else's couch, and they all realize what a nahal the guy is. Good for you for not caving in, Opie. Hopefully you got a lot of apologies from some of those friends. Most aren't talking to me anymore. I figure I can live without them. I'm only posting the update now as I have a meeting with my therapist in a couple hours and expect we'll bring this up. For the best, enjoy your a-hole-free apartment with no roommates or fair weather friends. Wait, so they all realized what a nightmare he is and still are mad at you for not taking him in? Way to go for holding your ground and insisting on them respecting your boundaries. I bet you are so proud of yourself for maintaining a peaceful home. Keep up the good work. I didn't see your first post before now, but I'm glad things are going well for you. You made your friends put their money where their mouth is, and the situation has helped you show who your true friends are. This is a great update. Keep doing what you're doing to remain safe. I'm glad it has do not enter list for your building. But do you carry some sort of mace or pepper spray? Not that I'm assuming the ex-roommate would come after you or anything, but with his anger issues, I'd be taking every precaution I could. It's also glad to hear some of your other friends are seeing the truth now. However, I would also hesitate letting any of them back into your life or your new apartment since it took another friend for them to see the truth. It seems like they didn't care about your opinion until someone else had the same one. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay rent to landlord, causing neighbors to be evicted? Are we the a-hole since my wife participated as well? 6 months ago, we moved into a duplex unit in a crowded city. The landlord went over all the amenities, but the only thing that truly sold us was the 2 reserved parking spaces for us. The wife and I have hectic work schedules, and trying to find city street parking is almost impossible. The landlord also told us that the neighbor is a single father with 2 kids. This place seemed perfect. How naive we were. The first week we moved in, neighbor had allowed their visitors to park their cars in our parking spaces. The first 3 weeks or so, we knocked on the door and politely asked them to move their cars. They always did. But when we knocked on their door for the 100th time, it just became a nuisance. After talking to the neighbor, there seemed to be no progress, although frequently given fake promises. We also started to notice that his visitors seemed to be living off their vehicles. Talking to the neighbor directly didn't seem to fix the problem, so we decided to talk to the landlord. Landlord tells us to have patience with neighbors since they are not used to sharing. So my wife and I did. Parking was not the only issue. Neighbor also threw parties every day from 2 p.m. to 4 a.m. Not exaggerating. There were constantly 10+ adults fighting with music bumping through our walls. The thin wall is also how we found out that the neighbor is a dealer. It allows his clients/friends to use/live at his house, which is why they rarely slept or acted rational or left the property. 4th and 5th month came and went. Nothing had changed. Neighbor became irrational and it just made everything uncomfortable. So on the 6th month, we simply sent a text to the landlord that read, "We will not be paying rent this month until our parking situation is cleared up." The rest of the story is simply not what we imagined. The whole ordeal happened on the other side of the wall. At 10 a.m., the landlord knocks on the neighbor door and is let in. The landlord quickly realizes that his whole house is a mess. Finds substances, broken property, etc. Voices were raised, and amongst the chaos, we clearly hear the landlord say, "I only came here because the neighbors are complaining about the parking spots. You have 30 days to get out or I'll call the police." Later, landlord texted me, "Neighbor is leaving in 30 days." Of course, neighbor and all his friends are pissed. However, the wife and I did not want them to be evicted, and we were shocked. We just wanted our parking spots, But now a family and 10 plus other people are homeless. I can't help but feel like we might have been a-holes here by refusing to pay rent. Now for the comments. Not an a-hole. But you may want to watch your backs for the coming months. I know. That's exactly what I've been thinking of. Check up on me in 3 months. Joke. Get cameras for your cars that can record through the night. I know, that's what I'm up doing right now. If you have any suggestions, I'd really appreciate it. Not an a-hole. The neighbor ignored your frequent requests to not park in your parking spots. You are paying for the spots, and they're on your lease. Your neighbor knew the risks of selling at an apartment. This doesn't necessarily mean they will be homeless. Obviously, they were able to pay rent beforehand. They just need to relocate. Turns out, the neighbor had been living here for almost 8 years. Landlord said that this tenant came with a property and just allowed him to stay since he didn't have to find someone to occupy it when he bought the units 4 years ago. Landlord also said that lately their rent has been coming late and at times short. Moving and finding a place isn't cheap, which is why I almost feel sorry for them. Also, pretty sure that none of them work as they are always home. Not an a-hole. Neighbor brought it upon himself. If you engage in blatantly illicit activity in the place you rent and you are not super discreet about it, you are bound to be evicted. If not from you, it would have been from a fight that would have broken out at this place. Some client ratting them out to the police for some reason, people passing out in the common areas of the building. The fact that you feel remorse just shows that you think about the consequences of your actions, like a decent human being. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for hanging out outside a lot? The neighboring family wants more privacy, but honestly they have it already, and I'm not paying them any attention. I have an apartment in a house that has been split up into apartments. The outdoor space is also split up so each apartment has a personal outdoor space. The first floor is one apartment and they have the back deck as outdoor space. The second floor is another apartment and they have a balcony. The front yard and side yard as outdoor space. I have the third floor apartment and my outdoor space is the backyard. On the right side of the house there is an alley for shared access and all of the tenants can cut through there. I was super excited to get a place with an outdoor spot of my own. My landlord also said I could build raised garden beds to garden in, as long as I keep them maintained and leave them in good shape when I moved out. He was also fine with me getting some outdoor furniture, a few chairs and a table with an umbrella to keep under the trees and a hammock. So I spent a lot of time outdoors, working remotely, having friends over, reading books and painting, relaxing, gardening, exercising, etc. My landlord is super happy with us as I take really good care of the lawn and garden. But the neighbors, the family on the ground floor with a back deck and the 2 guys on the second floor with a back balcony, have gotten annoyed at me. The guys on the second floor haven't said anything directly to me, but I overheard them when I was going to bed one night sitting on their balcony and talking about how finally that witch has gone inside. The family on the ground floor did say something to me. The couple told me that they're trying to raise 2 young kids. It's good for kids' development to be able to play outside, and I am selfishly hugging the outside. I said that it's cool if they play outdoors too. After all, each apartment has its own personal outdoor area, and it wouldn't bother me at all if they used theirs. But they said that they want their kids and family to have more privacy, and not always be watched. I said I wasn't watching. I'm busy with my own stuff, and if they had their kids playing out on the deck, I wouldn't pay them any mind. They said I was missing the point, and it's uncomfortable to do stuff outdoors if there is always someone there. Like, it would also be uncomfortable for their guests if they were having a nice dinner party out back and I was sitting right nearby. I said they could ask me for some privacy next time they wanted to host because I wouldn't mind, but they said they don't want to ask every time they want to use their space. I felt like they were asking me to just spend a lot less time outdoors, and that would honestly be a huge change. And it would really be disappointing because I only got this apartment for the personal outdoor space as the indoor space is kinda cramped and ugly. Would I be the a-hole if I didn't change my habits and still spent a lot of time outdoors? Not the a-hole. Your neighbors are being unreasonable. Keep doing what you are doing. If they want that much privacy outside, they should move somewhere with a more private yard. Yeah. Honestly, I was confused by their expectations to not be seen by anyone when hanging out outside in a fairly large city. Like, I honestly wouldn't mind. or feel watched or whatever if they all hung out outside just as much as I do. I don't really expect that kind of privacy. I think maybe they were just so used to the previous tenant who apparently never used the backyard, and they were always able to have privacy back there. I'd suggest having a discussion with your landlord, or at least notify him before the others do, that they're pressuring you to not use space made available to you. Other than that, it's on them if they feel uncomfortable. That's their issue and they need to deal with, not you. You just keep living your life and enjoying your outdoor space. Not today, Hull. You are within your lease agreement, and your neighbors seem off their rocker. If these people wanted more privacy, they need to move into a house or out in a rural area. Privacy in a house turned apartment complex in Toronto? They are out of their damn mind. Seriously, I live in a bungalow outside Ottawa. We have big yards, but they're long, not very wide. So on our deck I can see both neighbors when they come outside, which we all often do because it's summer. You know what we all do? Wave, say hi, and go on to our business. Like reasonable people. OP's neighbors are nutpacks. Not today, Hull. If they want more privacy, they should buy a house. If they can't do that, they have to be ready for some sacrifices. You're not doing anything wrong. Ignore them. They're being entitled. Hell, there are even townhouse rentals in the suburbs that are on the same price level as much smaller apartment rentals in the city. I feel like that kind of rental makes a lot more sense for a family of 4 that wants privacy.
Am I the a-hole for keeping food in my room? Plus update. Original post. I, 19 female, have a full-time job and pay $500 rent a month. I still live with my father, my stepmom, stepsister, and unfortunately my stepbrother, 22 male. My stepbrother doesn't have a job, doesn't plan to get one, just sits at home all day on his butt eating up all of our food and playing video games. My dad won't do anything about it because he loves my stepmom, and my stepmom won't do anything because she loves her son, and this is how she raised him. They came into my life when I was 8 years old, and it's always been this way. She cuddles him, doesn't punish him, and she lets him do whatever the heck he wants, which includes eating all the food in the house. I remember when I was 12, and my older half-sister still lived with us. She had some friends over, so we ordered a large pizza. We ate almost half of it, and put the rest in the fridge so we could have pizza for breakfast, right? No, that bum ate the rest of it by himself in the middle of the night. By the way, we ordered pizza because there was no other food in the house. Ever since they moved in, we haven't had a full fridge. Anyway, I have a small stash of food in my room now, in one of those rubber totes, so the chance of ants and whatnot is minimum. I keep chips, bottled pops, bread/bagels, and most recently, Cracker Barrel boxed mac and cheese in there. I've been craving mac and cheese like crazy recently, so I bought a few boxes and stashed them away. Last night I made a box of mac and cheese, but my stepbrother wandered out of his room and asked where I got the mac and cheese from, because we currently don't have food, though his mom is running to the grocery store as I'm typing this. So I told him from my room, and he asked what I meant. I told him I keep food in my room so someone doesn't eat all of my stuff. I put a big emphasis on someone when talking to him. He called me an a-hole and asked why I wouldn't share my food with everyone. I called him an a-hole right back and said maybe if you don't eat so much, there would be more food to go around. I guess we were kind of loud because my dad came upstairs and asked what we were yelling about. And my stepbrother literally freaking tattled on me and saying I'm keeping food in my room away from everyone. My dad asked if I was serious, so I told him something along the lines of, yes, I am, because I'm sick and tired of waking up hungry because there's no food in the house. I pay you more than enough rent to get food for everyone. I also threw in how my stepbrother doesn't even have a job, and he's a lazy moocher who doesn't contribute anything, and then stormed off to my room, with my mac and cheese, of course. I don't really think I'm an a-hole, but my dad texted me and told me that it was really unnecessary for me to say all that, and to keep food in my room because other people are hungry too. I texted one of my cousins about it, and she sided with my dad, so I'm just second-guessing myself here. Please let me know if I'm the a-hole. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. You are not stashing food from family pantry. You are buying your own food. The mistake was letting the secret out. Yeah, you're very right about that. I never said I was the brightest. I think I just wanted to stick it to him, but now I realized my mistake. Yeah, dude, you messed up revealing you have a stash. Don't be surprised when it disappears. All you needed to say was you bought it, and if you want some, he should get off his butt and go buy it like you had to. Just wondering, does your stepbrother who is 3 years older not pay any rent while you pay $500? I would be less mad about the food and more upset about the mixed standards. No, he doesn't pay rent, but I'm also not really expected to pay rent. I just feel for my dad because he's constantly stressing over money, but I know he'd never actually ask me for it. He was kind of embarrassed when I started paying him rent, to be honest, but I knew he could use it. So I'm not upset about the rent aspect. I mean, I kind of am because I know my stepbrother is freeloading, but I'm choosing to do this myself. Not the a-hole. You may want to get a container that locks to store your food. Now that they know it's there, your family will absolutely steal it. I'm not worried about the rest of my family, just my stepbrother. Luckily, my dad is pretty lenient in most things, so I do have a lock on my door. I'll start locking it whenever I leave for work now. Thanks for the tip. Not the a-hole. Up the ante and get yourself a mini fridge with padlock and microwave for your room. Haha, I've been thinking about that. However, I do have plans to move out by the end of this year, fingers crossed, so I don't want to waste any of my savings on being petty just yet. If it gets any worse, I might have to though. Now for the update. So I did what a lot of you suggested and had a sit-down talk with my dad when he got home from work. The first thing he said before we even began talking was apologizing because he understood where I was coming from, and he just didn't want to deal with my brother's bitterness. I said that is fine, and then asked where he was spending all of my money, because the mortgage is paid off, and all we have are utilities and car payments, and lots of car repairs because both cars are hunks of junk. This took him by surprise, and asked what I meant. I told him that I pay him more than enough to have some money left over to buy food for the house, especially with my stepsister giving him rent too. He just said stuff for the house. So, I went with someone suggested and told him that from now on, I'll be buying the groceries and giving him whatever's left over from the $500 a month for rent. He told me I don't need to do that it wasn't necessary, yada yada, which kind of irked me, but whatever. I then asked if he was going to do anything about the food problem in the house, and this apparently finally broke him. And he told me that he's been keeping all the money I give him for the rent in a separate savings account for when I move out. I was honestly speechless. I gave him the money because he's always tight on it and stressing over it, and this man has been saving it for me. I immediately apologized for being kind of a brat about the situation. I had an attitude because I was sick of everything, and told him to please use whatever he needs so we don't have to deal with it anymore. It took some convincing, but he said he's still only going to use what's absolutely necessary, but said that I can buy groceries once a month and put the rest of the $500 in my savings. So thank you everyone for the advice. Some people have also suggested I talk to my stepbrother and try to motivate him or even try to figure out what's wrong with him. Not the best way to put it, but I don't know how else. And I will do that eventually. But now isn't really the time. For now, everything seems to be good, so thank you again. Anyone else wondering how long it'll take before stepbrother breaks into her room to steal her food now that he knows is there? That was my initial reaction as well. She needs to lock that food stash up tighter than Fort Knox. Agreed. I'm very surprised the update didn't start with, stepbrother broke into my room and ate all the food I had. Anyone else wondering how long it'll be before she figures out dad has no savings account for her? Am I the only cynical one here? Nah, I'll go with something like the stepmother draining it to pay for stuff for the stepbrother because they're family and OP should share. I honestly can't see him saving the money if they are struggling to buy food. The money is going somewhere, but I do not believe there is a secret stash of money in savings for her. Sounds like maybe stepmom taught her precious baby the ropes and getting by with no contribution. Dad and OP would be wise to have a family meeting and ask that between the two of them, they at least contribute enough monthly to buy 2 weeks of food. Dad isn't going to do anything. He went after his daughter instead of his stepson when he knew his daughter was in the right, just because it's more difficult. Standing up to his wife is even more difficult than that. I doubt he's suddenly going to grow a spine. Next story. Am I the a-hole for choosing my trip over babysitting my niece? Plus update. I, 27 female, have been planning a long trip abroad for some time now. I work remote, so it's easy to pick up and go, and this is my first time doing it. I was laid off recently, but since I have a lot of money saved and the trip has already been paid for, I've decided to go for a sabbatical. For months, I have had to convince my parents, grandparents, and siblings that I am going to safe places, that I have enough money, and that they don't need to worry. I finally had them in a good spot, and I'll leave in about 2 weeks. Recently though, things have changed. I normally end up taking care of my niece, 2 female, for my sister, 32 female, at least once a week. My sister goes to work 3 days a week and works 2 days from home. And her husband, 39 male, works from home, but has to stay near his computer at all times since he works in customer service. On the weekends, they enjoy going out to things like hockey games, dinner, etc. I normally take care of my niece during those times. It tends to work out because they will go out on Sunday, so I will have my Friday and Saturday nights. But with this trip, of course I will not be able to babysit. My sister was joking about this one day, and recently my parents have been asking a lot about my trip. And what about my niece? I was confused and asked them to elaborate. Apparently, 2 years old is an important time in a child's life, and they said that she wouldn't remember me when I got home. They want me to shorten my non-refundable trip and come home earlier so I don't miss out on any milestones. I told them that I couldn't and that it was final, and now they have been amping up the guilt. They have also gotten my grandparents involved. The only support I have is my brother, 30 male, who also never sees my niece except for special occasions. They are also bringing up my recent layoff and my financial state. I don't want to brag, but for a 27-year-old, I have a high enough savings that I could live for a year and never work. I've been laid off a lot, so savings was a priority. I could still travel and do everything I want. I have no loans, no current apartment now, and have all the big things paid for. But despite my knowing I am fine, they are starting to scare me and guilt-trip me to staying. Tonight it all blew over. My sister called me an a-hole in front of my family since I won't be able to babysit. What is she supposed to do on the weekends? I yelled at her and told her to finally hire a babysitter. My parents are on her side and told me that you should help out more. I yelled at all of them that it was not my responsibility to parent the child if they could live for a few weeks without their free babysitter, and then left. My brother texted me later that they're still angry and disagreed with my choice to continue my trip. Am I the a-hole for choosing my trip over my niece? Edit. A lot of people have asked. I will be gone for just under 4 months. I will be traveling around Europe with a short trip to visit a friend in South Korea and coming home. I suppose that would be more than just a few weeks. Lol. But not the point. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. You didn't birth the child. You simply extended your helping hand toward your sister, who has absolutely taken advantage of the goodwill of you babysitting. Go low contact and get on the plane. I'm sure there's a few milestones you'll miss, but if your family wants you to see those milestones, maybe they should take pictures. FaceTime you? Don't feel guilty and don't stay. Otherwise, you'll regret not taking your trip. And your sister should be looking after her own kid on the weekend, or maybe your parents should be if anyone is so concerned with babysitting. Enjoy your trip. If not low contact, cut down on the babysitting, like once in a couple of months if you feel generous. And there's no need at all for family permission to go away on holiday either. No more free babysitting. This is how it started. Occasional babysitting turned into a regular Sunday thing. Now they want you to put your life on hold so you can watch the child they created. When my son was 2, I took him to another country with my mother. My husband was gonna join us 2 weeks later as he was short on vacation time. Guess what? Kid remembered his dad. He even knew his paternal grandparents and maternal great-aunt, whom he never met before and only saw on FaceTime once a week. So, kid will remember you. Oh, and don't be talked into any family holiday either. You know your sister is going to dump her kid in your lap. Tell your sister to suck it up. And tell your parents to help out more. Enjoy your trip. Now for the update. Hey everyone! First off, I want to thank everyone that commented on my last post. It blew up, so I wanted to update really quickly. I wanted to answer a few questions. 1. Yes, I have a year's worth of savings. This means that I can pay for rent and other expenses for up to 1 year without a job. 2. I do plan on continuing to look for a new position and take interviews when I can. I hope that I can get a new one because in my state, I am unable to get a new apartment without proof of income at my age. 3. I only moved back in with my parents temporarily. It's been a month. I wanted to save money and not have an apartment. They're also storing all of my stuff. They are normally okay parents, but they play favorites. 4. I will not go no contact with my family, but maybe low contact. They are important to me, but I will take your advice to stop babysitting every Sunday for my niece. It's obviously been a bad habit for my sister and brother-in-law. On to the update. Today was my niece's birthday. It was a small get-together of my family and some friends, and it was a really good time. After the party, my sister pulled me aside. She apologized for getting my mom up in arms about the babysitting. She knew I wanted to go on the trip. We hugged and I accepted her apology. For your information, my mom and I don't really get along. I don't like how she treats people, and her favoritism has always caused some insecurity. Though she has helped me a lot and I am grateful to her, I will always be the bratty youngest daughter, and I've come to accept that. Unfortunately, because of her, I have this people-pleasing behavior that I am trying to break out of. Hence, the pure turmoil between choosing my trip over my niece. My mom is very controlling, and the only reason I am still in contact is because of my dad. He's my best friend. I would hate to leave him behind. He understands my problems with my mom. He hasn't tried to fix much. He doesn't know how, but he listens and takes my feelings into account. It means the world to me. When my mom heard my sister complain, she decided it was going to be a good way to keep me home. She told the family about how a little girl shouldn't be traveling alone. She's mentioned the Natalie Holloway case, and that set a lot of people off. She watches a lot of Lifetime and Dateline. That's why everyone started hounding me in the first place. Then she added on my lack of a job and my other responsibilities like babysitting, so that everyone would agree that I shouldn't go. Now the big update is that I did choose my trip. In fact, I'm planning to extend. Maybe I'll travel more around Southeast Asia or go to Australia, since I will be over there. To be determined, but I wanted to thank everyone for the advice and the good wishes. You all have made me feel so much more confident about this trip. Thanks again. Edit: my parents do babysit once a week as well, just during the weekday since they are retired. Natalie Holloway was 18. You were 27, and that may make you a little girl if you're a tortoise or a Greenland shark. But as a human, it makes you a perfectly normal adult. Have a great trip, and Grey rock the F out of your mom. It's disappointing about the dad. Mom has apparently been pulling stuff like this for years, and he just throws his arms in the air. Defend your daughter, man. It's disappointing when kids can't understand that the other parent's sins are just as bad as the abusive ones if the other won't defend and protect the child. Sad. I wish people would get through their heads that the enabling parent is not nice. They are complicit. It's part of the screwed-upness of growing up in such a family. There's one parent behaving badly, and you feel terrible around them. Then there's the other parent. If you spend time with them alone, you feel good. They listen. Maybe they even acknowledge you're having a difficult time. They don't fix it, but during your time with them, you felt more comfortable. It feels like the dynamic is set in stone. You can't do something about it. They say they can't do something about it, but at least they don't brush you off completely. The thought that they could actually do something to protect you doesn't cross your mind. In your eyes, they are the good parent because they sometimes give you a minimum of attention, and you feel comfortable spending time with them in comparison to the other parent. It's difficult to wrap your head around the fact that they also failed you, but in a different way than the more obvious toxic parent. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad to get the heck out of my life and go attend his precious stepdaughter's wedding? My dad wasn't there for me growing up. He and my mom were 22 mom and 25 him when they had me. He didn't even pay child support for the first 7 years of my life. He was ordered to, but he always found a way to dodge support until eventually he stopped dodging and paid it monthly, along with the arrears he owed. When I was 4, he met his wife and became a father to her daughter, who is 16 months younger than me. When I was 16, he had a change of heart and reached out to establish a relationship with me, fighting to show me he really wanted it. I hesitantly agreed. He was trying really hard and even paid my mom a huge lump sum of the owed child support. What sort of won me over was how he handled his stepdaughter. She wanted me to live with him and wanted a brother because my dad and his wife had 3 daughters together plus his stepdaughter. They consider each other father and daughter because her biological father isn't in her life. She was really pushy with me about moving in with them, insisting my mom kept me from my dad and their family. This was not true, but she wanted to paint my mom as the bad guy. My dad told her she was wrong. He sat her down with me there and told her he had been a bad dad to me, that he made those choices, and that I didn't need to move in. He held his ground even when she pouted and acted like a baby about it. I never wanted to be her brother, and I don't like her. We have a lot of bad blood because she knows I don't want to be her brother and feels I was wrong not to move in with them. I find her entitled, selfish, and bratty. But my dad didn't push me for it or make it seem like I was wrong for not wanting to leave my mom, who had raised me solo my whole life up to that point. He even paid for my college and was there when I needed him. My relationship with him improved, but his stepdaughter and his daughters always came before me. That was something I always felt. Over the last year, things have been different between us. He has wanted me to be more involved in his family and get closer to his stepdaughter. He told me I've had 10 years to embrace everyone and become a full member of the family, instead of treating his stepdaughter like an enemy. I told him it wasn't going to happen. There was drama a few months ago because rumors were circulating that his stepdaughter's boyfriend cheats on her a lot. There's no proof to my knowledge, but rumors show no sign of stopping, and more keep coming out as the months pass. I got engaged last year, and a month ago, my fiancé and I set the date. My dad and his stepdaughter did a Zoom call with me about it, where she asked me to give up the date because she's now engaged and wants to get married on that date. I said no. She whined, and I ignored her. She went ahead and booked the dates anyway, then called my dad via Zoom. He called me and said she needed my dad to give her away. She insisted I had to find another date. I told her to buzz off and left the call. My dad called me and said he needs to be there for her and doesn't want to miss my wedding, so could I please move the date? To me, it was a step too far. I told him to get the heck out of my life and attend his stepdaughter's wedding then. I understood he raised the girls and they came first for him, but after all the fighting he did to have a relationship with me, putting this girl before me was too much, especially for something I booked first. Besides, he made it clear whose wedding he'd attend. My dad has tried to reach out despite what I said, and his wife sent a long email the other night saying I should have compassion and understanding for him. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Nope, and time to block her and her mother. Compassion and understanding for him? You weren't the one who put him in this situation. I think I'll block them all. Better for me. He chose her. That he is pushing you to change your date versus pushing her to change her date speaks volumes. And stepsister only chose that specific date because OP had already chosen it. Stepsister knew dad would choose her over OP, and this was just the opportunity to prove it. Not the a-hole, and I'm willing to bet that the stepsister's wedding doesn't take place, and dad will try to come to yours. Do not let him. Block him at a lot of them, and have a beautiful wedding and a long and happy marriage. Or maybe the affair will be exposed at the wedding and she'll be humiliated. I'm petty enough to hope that happens. Not the a-hole. You set your date first. She set hers on the same date to force her father into choosing her. He did. There is nothing for you to do here, except recognize how awful they all are and choose not to keep this drama in your life. I will go no contact with a lot. That's what I plan to do. I already told him to get the heck out of my life, and I meant every word of it. Have you considered assuming your mom's surname before the wedding? If you don't already have it, that is. I think it'd be a good idea. Get rid of that toxicity once and for all. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my brother and his family stay at my place for Christmas because they borrowed my dog's toy last year? Last Christmas, my brother, his wife, and their 2 kids stayed at my house for the holidays. It was a bit chaotic, but I was happy to host. I have a golden retriever, Max, who is the love of my life and a huge part of my family. He has a favorite stuffed toy, a beat-up duck he's had since he was a puppy. This toy is his comfort object, and he always carries it around. During their stay, my niece, 6 at a time, got very attached to Max's duck. I told her it was Max's favorite toy and even showed her how much she loved it. When they left, I realized they had taken it home with them. I texted my brother thinking it was a misunderstanding and asked for it back. He said my niece cried about leaving it, so they let her keep it. I was pretty upset and explained that it wasn't just a random toy. It was Max's favorite. He said, "It's just a dog toy. Go buy another one." I told him they needed to send it back, but they refused. I even offered to buy my niece a new duck toy that looked the same, but they still said no because she was too attached to it now. Max was visibly sad for weeks afterward. He looked for his duck every day, and it broke my heart. I ended up scouring the internet to find the exact same duck, but Max never loved it as much as the original. Fast forward to this year. My brother asked if they could stay again for Christmas, and I told him no. He was shocked and asked why. I reminded him about the duck incident and how disrespectful it was. He said I was being petty and holding a grudge over a dog toy. My parents and other siblings are now calling me the Grinch and saying I'm punishing my niece for something she didn't understand at a time. To me, it's not about the toy, it's about the principle and a blatant disregard for my boundaries. If they couldn't respect something so small, why would I trust them to respect my home again? Am I the a-hole? If only your poor niece had decent parents who would help her understand. Children who are never taught right from wrong have such a hard time learning how to become decent members of society. You aren't reacting to your niece's mistake. She was just a child. You are protecting yourself and your family from adults who are devoid of compassion for others and have shown that they have no respect or regard for their own family when it inconveniences them. They have shown they can't be trusted in your home or car or allowed unsupervised access to basically anything. Because of their own choices, they have to deal with the consequences and can pay for a hotel or let someone else host them. Not the a-hole. She was 6. She was more than old enough to understand too. Not the a-hole. Why the heck would anyone want their kid to keep a goddamn toy that has been slobbered on and chewed by a dog? Freaking gross. Also, saying I'm punishing my niece for something she didn't understand at a time. If your 6-year-old doesn't understand, the toy is not yours, we can't take it home, then you have severely spoiled your child. I understood it by 4, probably. Definitely by 5 and certainly by 6. Exactly. They ruined that perfect opportunity to teach their child that 1, she can't have everything she wants, and 2, that she just can't take other people's things. Bad parents. They don't deserve treats for their bad behavior. Next story. Am I the a-hole for getting so mad that my dad gave my half-sister something my mom left me? My mom died when I, 17 male, was 6. She left me a handmade box with my name on it, along with a letter tied to it for me to read when I was old enough. She also included the box and everything inside it in her will, explicitly stating that it was 100% meant to be mine and only for me, not for my dad or anyone else. My dad was supposed to keep it safe for me, so he kept it in his room. My dad has a daughter who's 8. His relationship with her mom broke down, and he has full custody of her, so we all live together. A few weeks ago, I noticed my half-sister had my mom's 3 bracelets that were inside my box. I asked her about it, and she said I wanted her to have them. I confronted my dad, and he told me it was a nice gesture, and he wanted me to let her keep them. He said I wouldn't wear them, so what's the harm? I got mad and told him those bracelets were my mom's, and I'm her only child. My dad told me that didn't matter. I said it does matter. I pointed out that his daughter is not my mom's child and isn't who I would want to have them in the future. He told me I should consider it an act of accepting my half-sister and that I don't make enough of an effort to do that. I told him this was the way to get me to accept her. We argued about it. I've been mad ever since, and I made my half-sister give the bracelets back. She resisted and cried, which pissed my dad off, but I never want her to have them. My dad told me my anger isn't fair and that I should look at the bigger picture. He said I should understand he still loves my mom and wanted my half-sister to have something from her. I told him to give her something he kept, not something my mom made clear was meant for me. I told him it couldn't be clearer, and his daughter doesn't deserve anything when she's not my mom's child. My dad told me my anger isn't right and that I should reconsider my stance. He said being so angry about it shows I don't care about him or my half-sister. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Those are yours and you have every right to decide what to do with them. Your father is being emotionally manipulative. He could legally open a lawsuit that his father stole from him and failed as the executor of the will. If your dad thought this was in any way right, he would have talked to you before giving the items away. They weren't his to give. And he lied to his daughter as well, because she thought you wanted her to have them. The comment you made about giving her something from your dad's pile of memories was spot on. Your dad betrayed your mom's memory by disregarding her will. He betrayed you by building some delusion that his dead wife would approve of him stealing from her child. You can love someone and lose respect for them, and you're rapidly losing respect for your selfish, untrustworthy excuse of a father. Your half-sister has a living mother. When she passes away, the kid can have whatever she wants from that woman. Until then, you're going to protect and treasure what your mom left you because your dad has proven you can't trust him. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. This was something your mom left for you. Tell your dad this is something for you to pass on to your children, not a paternal half-sister. I told him that, and he said I could still give it to my half-sister, and it would be just as meaningful. I told him it wouldn't be for me. She's 8. Take it from her, hide it, and deny it. She'll forget, and it will demonstrate to your useless father that he shouldn't give things to an 8-year-old. I already got it back, but she refused at first. She's still upset about it. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not saving the house so my brother can buy it? There is a lot to this situation, but I'll try to keep it brief. I, 25 female, have a mom, a grandma, and great-grandpa who all lived on the same property. My mom and grandma share a house, while my great-grandpa had his own house next door. He sadly passed away about 2 years ago and the house went to my grandma. Even before my great-grandpa died, we had talked about me eventually buying the house and half the property from my grandma. We initially thought this would happen when I was around 30, but you can't really predict the death of a loved one that precisely. I had recently moved to a different city to be with my boyfriend, but he also agreed we would move back once we're ready to settle down. While my grandma was grieving and contemplating whether she wanted to sell, my mom suggested my little brother Luke, 19, and his girlfriend Emma, 20, move in temporarily. This would give them some privacy and, in turn, help maintain the house. No renovations or anything involving money. This year, my grandma decided she wants to sell the house next year because she needs money for her own renovations. Yesterday, I visited my family, and my grandma, mom, and I set a date to discuss how to proceed, cost, responsibilities, etc. That's when my brother interrupted, saying he should be involved since he's also interested in the house. This was the first I'd heard of it, but apparently my mom already knew. She said our main concern should be keeping the house in the family and suggested Luke and I could discuss later who will live in it and buy my grandma out. I told him I intended to let Luke and Emma live there rent-free for a few years while I focus on my career before settling down. However, I made it clear I would not invest in something unless I intended to make it my own one day. Property is expensive, and my boyfriend and I want to start investing now before we have major financial responsibilities, like children. My brother argued that since he and Emma have already been living there, it's unfair to expect them to leave when I decide to move back. I told him the alternative. He pays the full amount, he's a student and doesn't have a part-time job, next year, or grandma sells it to a stranger. My brother and mom called me selfish, saying I'd get the money back if he eventually bought it for me. However, for me, it's not just about the money, it's also about the financial strain. Paying off a loan would mean tightening our budget and effectively losing money due to inflation. It's true, I'm the only one able to pay my grandma to keep the house from being sold to strangers, but I feel they're putting an unfair expectation on me and guilt-tripping me by calling me selfish. Am I in the wrong here? I'd like some outside opinions. Let me rephrase their actual demand of you to the bare truth. You have to buy this house for us to live in however long we want, with no obligation to you except a vague statement about buying it from you eventually. Because family. See how crazy that is? Absolutely not, unless you are independently wealthy and have no issues with supporting your brother indefinitely. Given his response to your saying you'll want the house eventually if you're the one buying it, essentially, how dare you ask us to move out of our house before we're ready? I suspect you'll never get him out. Let the family handle the sale process, or you'll forever be labeled as the sibling who evicted their own brother. Your brother wants you to subsidize his life. Your family's desires shouldn't be used to put you in a crippling financial position. Don't let your mom and brother manipulate you with emotions. And don't come to a verbal agreement. Being screwed over in this situation could impact you for decades. If you're in the US, your boyfriend may be unprotected unless he's part of a contract or you're married. Asking him to contribute financially could also be risky. This isn't some game, and your mom has shown she's willing to play games to get what she wants. You cannot trust them to care about your financial interests when the time comes to sort it out. We would definitely get everything in writing and approved by a lawyer. I love my family, but the I never said that game is strong. My boyfriend and I aren't married yet, but we intend to write him into the contract, as well as stipulate what happens if we split.